Hi everyone, today's screencast is going to cover chromosomes. Please make sure that you've got a pen and some paper before we start. Once you've got your pen and paper, please write down today's LO, which is to understand how genetic information is stored inside the nuclei of cells. Once you've written down the LO for today, have a go at these retrieval practice questions. Here we're looking at content covered in animal cells, plant cells, and prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Okay, once you've finished, get ready to mark your answers. Make sure you've got a different coloured pen. So question 1 is asking us to identify this cell here. So we need to look at the features that this cell has and decide which type of cell this one is. So I can see straight away this cell has a nucleus, so we know this cell must be a eukaryote. This means it's not going to be a bacterial cell because a bacterial cell does not have a nucleus, it has single loop DNA. Instead, it is a prokaryote. So this cell is going to be either an animal or a plant cell. Now, around the outside of the cell here, I can see one layer which indicates that this cell only has a cell membrane. There is no cell wall here. If this was a plant cell, it would have a cell wall. So we know that this cell must be an animal cell. Question 2 asks us to identify A, B, and C. We've got A as the cell membrane, B as the nucleus, and C as the cytoplasm. 3 asks us what the function of each of those organelles is. So we know that the cell membrane controls the movement of substances into and out of the cell. We know that the nucleus controls the activity of the cell and contains the genetic information. And we know that the cytoplasm is the site of most chemical reactions. Finally, question 4 asks us in which type of cells we would find these structures or organelles. We've learnt about these 3 types of cell here: animal, plant, and bacteria. We know that the cell membrane is found in all 3, so we'd have animal, plant, and bacteria for that one. The nucleus, however, is only found in animal and plant cells because they are eukaryotic cells. Remember, eukaryotic cells have a nucleus, like you'd see here. The genetic information is contained in the nucleus, whereas in a bacteria cell, we have single loop DNA that is found in the cytoplasm, so it does not have a nucleus. For C, the cytoplasm is also found in all 3 of these cells. So if we move on now, we're going to look at the nucleus in a little bit more detail. So plant and animal cells are both eukaryotic cells. The defining feature of eukaryotic cells is that their genetic material, or DNA, is enclosed within the nucleus. So I've put here the diagrams of animal and plant cells that we've already seen, and we can see they both have the nucleus here. So in eukaryotic cells, the nucleus contains thread-like structures called chromosomes, and I've popped here an image of a chromosome. This is a typical image that you will see. Chromosomes are made from highly coiled strands of relatively long DNA. So you can see here, this is a long chain of DNA here. Each chromosome is made from one DNA molecule. Sections of DNA are called genes. Genes are responsible for the organism's features. So, for example, if we all have one gene for eye colour, a gene for skin colour, and we also have some genes for height, different versions of the same gene are called alleles. So our eye colour gene has different alleles, for example, blue eyes or brown eyes. In the body cells of diploid organisms, chromosomes are usually found in pairs. So we are an example of a diploid organism, and it means you have chromosomes in pairs. One chromosome from each pair is inherited from the mother and the other from the father. So that's illustrated here by this key. So each pair, we've got one chromosome from the father here, this purple one, and then the blue one is inherited from the mother. The gametes, or our sex cells, so the egg cells and sperm cells, are haploid, meaning they have half the number of chromosomes. In humans, we also have sex chromosomes, which are shown here, and they are the X and the Y chromosome. Males have X and Y, females have 2X chromosomes. Numbers of chromosomes in their nuclei, and that's what makes us different. So humans have 46 chromosomes in the nucleus of all their body cells, and these are found in 23 pairs. It's really important that if you have a question about chromosomes, you carefully read it, because if it's asking you how many pairs of chromosomes a human should have, it will be 23. If it's asking you how many individual chromosomes, it should be 46. I've used horses here as an example of an organism of a different species to show that they have different numbers of chromosomes. So horses have 64 chromosomes and they are found in 32 pairs. It's also important to remember that red blood cells are an exception because they actually lose their nuclei. So they therefore have no chromosomes at all. So once the red blood cells differentiate into a red blood cell, they lose their nuclei to allow more space for them to be able to carry oxygen around the body. There will be another screencast on cell division itself, but it's important to know what happens in relation to the chromosomes. So here we have one chromosome before DNA replication. Before a cell can divide, its genetic material needs to be doubled so that when it divides, it produces genetically identical cells. After DNA replication, we get this characteristic X-shaped chromosome, which we see in micrographs, and we saw it at the start of the screencast as well. So then each arm of this replicated chromosome is called a chromatid. It's also important to know that not all humans have 46 chromosomes. A change in the number of chromosomes can cause problems with growth, development, and the function of the body's systems. Down syndrome is an example of a condition caused by the presence of an extra chromosome in cells. People with Down syndrome usually have 3 copies of chromosome 21 in each of their cells. That gives them a total of 47 chromosomes per cell. So you can see here, rather than having 2 copies of chromosome 21, they have got 3 copies. Your task now is to complete the exam questions on the following slides. So you need to pause the screencast on each question. I'm going to flick through them for you. You need to pause it as we go through, and then we will go through the answers. So here's the first question. And we've got question 2. Our next question. Next question's on the screen now. And then we have the final question. This one does carry on from the previous question. And when you're ready, make sure you've got a different coloured pen. Please make sure you correct your answers and add in anything that you've missed to make sure you can use these notes as revision. So for question 1, our first answer should be 46. How many chromosomes are there in most human body cells? 46, because it's talking about individual chromosomes. Then if we look how many chromosomes are in a human gamete cell, remember we said the gametes, so the egg cells and the sperm cells, are haploid, which means they have half the number of chromosomes. So the answer to B is 23. Which part in figure 1 contains chromosomes? We know that it must be A because A represents the nucleus. For B, humans have pairs of chromosomes in their body. draw one line from each type of cell to the number of chromosomes it contains. We've got a human body cell, which are diploid, meaning they have 46 chromosomes. And then we have a sperm cell, which is haploid, meaning that must have 23 chromosomes. When humans reproduce, chromosomes and genes are passed on to the next generation. In each of the following questions, draw a ring round the correct answer to complete the sentence. So a gene is a small section of DNA. The sex chromosomes in the human male are X and Y. Most human body cells contain 46 chromosomes, and the number of chromosomes in a human gamete or sex cell is half the number in body cells. Please make sure you add any corrections that you need to, and then you can use these notes for revision. Feel free to go back through the screencast